Hello and welcome to Lady So and So. We've been so lucky for the past few weeks to have an exhibition by Megan Manwaring, all the way from Australia, although she's now living in London. And we've had an exhibition of her quilts and she's our resident teacher. We're so lucky. Anyway, she's going to talk us through her quilts that have been on show here.
Oh, thanks so much, Judy. And before I start on talking about the quilts and we'll walk around, I have to say it's been a wonderful opportunity for me to have all the quilts hanging, because it's unusual to ever get the chance to put the quilts that you have with you on display. So it's been fun for me. In terms of the quilts that we'll walk around and have a look at, there's ones that I'm teaching here at Lady So and So, and I'll mention that, and there's workshops starting again in September after the summer. And there's ones that I had made from when I first moved over here in 2021, and ones that I brought with me. So I'll go through them, and where they another pattern, I'll mention those. So let's start in with this one here, which is, I'm really happy that came out of storage. It's just a fun play on cave shot stripes, which here at Lady So and So, and just simple circles using perfect circles and needle turn applique, and I call this one balance because I feel like the little circles are balancing over the triangle, and it was a lovely mindful exercise, so it's a bit of fun. This one here is what I call patchwork primer, and it's the beginner sampler that I taught. We just finished the 5th class today of, and it's going to follow again in September. Just your quintessential beginner 12-inch sampler of a mix of machine piecing and hand applique, and including English paper piecing and some foundation piecing. So we've had a lot of fun with that, and there's another version of that which I'll remember to point out in the warehouse. This one came out of storage. I had it tucked away for a couple of years. Quirky Chooks. Actually was in Australian Quilter's Companion at one stage a while ago. It's string piecing and needle turn applique and then hand quilted. And we're actually going to run that one in November. And because when Vanessa looked at it, it was for her Christmas turkey. So we thought we're not going to use Christmas fabric, but it's sort of might be a fun pre-Christmas project, and we'll have a cushion size as well. This one, Glorious Blooms, I turned back. I made this one in 2019, 2020, and again it was one that I just finished before we moved over, and it sat in storage for 2 years, so it's been lovely to have it hanging, so I'm so grateful. Hand piecing, and we're going to offer a workshop in this later in the year, how to make the templates, and you can actually construct this by hand or machine piecing, and lots of fussy cutting using cave fabrics, and just a nice contemporary take on the traditional noosuke block or bride's bouquet. So look out for that one. Mini mandalas, which I first made this back in, I think, 2014. I've run a number of workshops on this, Australia and here. It's again going to be on later in the year. Really, sort of, if you wanted to get started on needle turn applique, this is such a good quilt. Sorry, I'm biased, but it is such a good quilt because you don't have the inner curves. Once you've mastered one block, you get the repeated effect, but you get to play with fabric that I think we all buy at times, but not really sure how to use it. And by repeating the pattern in fussy cutting, you create these wonderful secondary patterns that each look different. And so in the workshop, we go through how to achieve the best results with fussy cutting, what fabrics work better than others, and what backgrounds you can use. So, and I've got another quilt with a different setting of this, so there's lots of options, or even a cushion. So that's a fun one, so it's been nice to see that out again.
Will that be a one-day workshop?
Oh yeah, so this is a one-day workshop. This is very much in one day. We cover all of the how-to, all of the play with fabrics, and the participants are always well underway with one block, which then gives you everything you need to make the rest. And we can talk about colour and different fabrics to have for the setting and other ones, and how to go shopping for fabric down the track, which always you think, how am I going to find more fabric? Because you want the variety, you're not going to buy it all at once, and who wants to put all their retail therapy on one day anyway, and what to take to the shop when you're looking for these sort of fabrics. So it works really well. So this quilt, which is made in all cave facet collective fabrics and shot cotton backgrounds, was the second one of my daily dose of applique quilts. I made this first in 2019 and again in 2020, and it was using or leveraging off the 100-day project that you see online, where I made one block a day for 100 days. And then I chose this alternate setting this time versus the 2019 version. And this pattern is available through Quiltmania as a pattern booklet. And there's 2 layouts. The blocks are all covered in that. So if you look at the Quiltmania website for that. We don't offer this one as a workshop, but there is another applique 3-day workshop later in the year, and I'll mention that quilt, which would give you all of the skills that you need to make that. So they're just fun little 4-inch blocks. This one, I included this quilt because it had come out of storage. It's not my design, Carolyn Friedlander's design, but it's really fun foundation piecing. And because we're also offering a foundation piecing workshop later in the year using Storm at Sea. If you've made that and loved it, this was just a fun one. It's a nice little wall hanging. You could make a wonderful memory quilt. So yeah, Carolyn Friedlander is the designer of that one. There's 2 more in this room to mention. This one, I couldn't not include this. This isn't my design. It's based on an antique quilt, and I used the pattern by Irene Blank, an Australian quilter. And it's one of those ones people look at and say, oh, how long did it take you? And it actually did take me a while, because I first started it back in 2015. I did like what lots of us do, did a workshop with Irene, was enthusiastic for the weekend, and then it went into the I haven't got time pile. But when I was packing up to move to the UK, I thought, no, this is worth persisting with, and it really kept me company in my first year of moving here. And I had the time and space to work on the other borders. So thanks to Irene for that pattern, and I'm really pleased that I actually got it finished. It was custom machine quilted by Belinda Betts, an Australian machine quilter, award-winning quilter, and she's done the most beautiful custom machine quilting job. So thanks to both of those. The final one in this room is Shelf Life, a quilt I made a while ago, inspired by Kaif's rice bowl quilt and also Giorgio Morandi still lifes. And we're offering this as a 1-day workshop. It's needle turn applique, and there's tips and tricks on how to work with those small pieces to create the shadow, and it's a really good exercise in value and colour and contrast. The pattern that is included with the workshop, you could make a small wall hanging of 9 coffee cups, but it was my homage to my morning coffee, which I can't start the day without. So it's had a lovely spot here by the door, and hope it gets booked out so we can run the workshop. And the backgrounds are shot stripes and shot cottons, which are available here, so you could make it along the lines of what I've done, and the coffee cups are all Kaif prints. So that's all in this room. So we're going to walk through to the warehouse to see more of the quilts.
Hello and welcome to Lady So-and-so, and welcome to Megan Manwaring's quilt exhibition, which we've been so lucky to have. She's an Australian but living in London, and we're so lucky that she's one of our workshop teachers. She's now going to give you a talk through about all of the quilts on display.
Thanks very much, Judy. And can I just say at the outset how grateful I am to Lady So-and-so, to Vanessa, Judy, and all of the team here for hosting this exhibition. It's been such a lovely experience to have my quilts hanging. It's rare to get quilts out in this number. So very grateful. We're now in the warehouse part of Lady So-and-so. We were in the front room before, and the quilts, the lovely high ceilings here let you see it. The quilts up high. So the first one we've got out here is my Liberty Tulips, which is very much a bit of an ode to Gwen Marston. That's where the block, I first saw it in one of her books, and then added borders. Lots of string piecing. My version, I made it with Liberty fabrics, but it's string piecing and then simple needle turn applique, and then lots of machine pieced borders. I made it a while ago. I've seen different colour versions of it. Pattern was in Quilter's Companion a while ago, but it's just I was glad to have it out again because it's one of my favourites. Moving down through the warehouse, the quilt up ahead, the blue background, is the other version of Patchwork Primer, the beginner sampler. 12-inch blocks. You'll see there's some differences between the other quilt that we looked at in the front room, but just it really exposed you to lots of different techniques, both machine and hand. and then a slightly different setting than a traditional sampler. And then over here on the left, on this lovely high position up here, is modern sampler. Not overly creative in my quilt names, but made all with K Facet Collective print fabrics, and really did this as a response to having taught a beginner sampler and then saying, well, okay, once you've learnt all the traditional rules, how can you break those rules and do wonky blocks and improvised quilting, improvised piecing, and an alternate block setting where you're really having to almost make it like a kitchen sink quilt. And we've just finished 5 classes in the Improver, which is an afternoon class designed for people who've done the beginner class already. And the blocks have been amazing what people have done. It's been so lovely to see that come out again, and we're offering that again starting in September, so once school goes back in. So walking through the warehouse, if you haven't been here, I'm just going to do a promotion back to there's such an amazing amount of fabric here. So if you haven't visited, I encourage you to come and take a look, because I certainly love coming up here. We could just glimpse up at one quilt up there, which is an applique one. That is some blocks of that. I call this town square, and blocks of this up here in applique sampler, which we're about to walk over to and talk about. Simple needle turn applique and fussy cutting and just scrappy delight of saturated colour. It's a fun quilt to make, and we're walking over to my applique sampler quilt, applique sampler with a twist, which we're offering from September as a 3-lot workshop over 3 months. And it's lots of different applique, methods of applique, machine piecing, string piecing, and you can see the town square that we were just talking about also appears in that quilt. I have really enjoyed teaching that quilt, so I'm thrilled that we can offer it again to offer it here. So that's one. Just a couple of few other quilts here. When we were doing this and planning what quilts to include, they're sort of my favourites, because I'd packed this one and some of the others when I moved from Australia. This is based on Kim McLean's flower garden quilt, which you can Google online. I term mine My Vertical Garden. It was one of my early applique quilts, and all of the flower blocks are Kim's designs, and if you haven't seen Kim's designs, you know, I recommend you Google. She does amazing things with K Facet Collective fabrics. That's on shop cotton backgrounds and just a simple sashing, which is different from the original, but it's such a favourite of mine that I thought, even though it's not my design, I'd love to include it here. So it's been lovely to have it hanging from the rafters. Next to it is Pinball, and this is just a play of colour and contrast and mixing fabrics. Really simple, turned edge circles, but by placing the values of the background and the values of the K Facet Collective prints, you get movement and down the quilt, and a secondary pattern in the background. So again, it's been fun to see that. That one I'd finished not long before we moved here, so it did sit in a box for 2 years, so it's been lovely to have it out. Then we'll whiz over here. On the other side of My Vertical Garden is a really recent finish called Looking Up, on shot cotton backgrounds and all 90% K Facet Collective prints. And the design for this was using the mini mandala shapes that we talked about, the quilt that was in the first video, and taking designs that I saw, or representing those using those shapes that I'd seen on buildings in fretwork and in timber as I was exploring London. So I won't go through it now, but all of them have an origin to some fretwork or timber work, and which I then varied to accommodate the shapes, but I wanted to keep with that tight palette. So that was, that could be, once you've made mini mandalas, you've got the templates, and that could be a future workshop and pattern. Lastly, wagon wheels, which is an old favourite of mine. It's again inspired by a quilt that I'd seen in the late Gwen Marston's String Quilts book. String piecing, wedge ruler, machine pieced, needle turn applicator, apply it to the background, though you could machine it, and hand quilted. But it's really scrappy. That if you look closely at it, there's kids fabric, Cave Fabrics, Liberty. It really was the fabrics that I was working with at the time. And then just lastly, another quilt of English paper piecing where it's shot stripes and shot cottons, and fussy cutting of stripes. And that was one that I also finished while I've been over here. So that's the quilts on display, and you've had a bit of a walkthrough of the warehouse. So thank you, Judy, for wanting to talk about the quilts.
Thank you very much, Megan.